Hi, you're watching The Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Miriam Shor is here with us.
Hey.
Got a lot going on these days.
Yes.
Younger, Lost Girls, a little bit of everything. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't shake your hand, so
I know.
I'm just going to do a little bump.
That's the new intimacy.
That's yeah.
That's all you're going to get, ever.
That's all I'm going to get.
Yeah, so I'm doing a ton of stuff, but right now we're talking about Lost Girls. I don't know why I'm pointing at this.
This is you.
A giant picture of my face. Actually, this is my wallpaper from my, in my apartment.
Yeah, you just got it all over the place.
Yeah.
You're like, listen,
different poses,
Listen,
obviously.
guys, it's just all the different phases
I
of me.
get bored with just the one picture of my face. So so many pictures.
It's silly, it's serious, it's
You
this.
think I could look, I'm an actor and I have to look at my face a lot. It's still awful.
It's just a weird thing in general.
Yeah.
Watching yourself, listening to yourself.
It's not fun. It's the
No.
least fun part.
Because you look at yourself one way and then the rest of the world
Right.
sees you entirely different. And you're like,
Internally,
really?
there's so much more coolness going on than the external version. That's what it comes down to.
So do you like watching your stuff after the fact?
I always watch, it's such a collaborative effort to make something, and of course I want to watch the outcome of that, because I enjoy watching shows and movies, so as a fan I like watching it. And depending on the character, it's easier or harder. I find the more I'm trying to look good, the less I want to watch myself. And the more sort of into the story I am, the easier it is to watch myself. So actually, Amy Ryan, who's in Lost Girls with me, and we were talking about how watching that movie is very difficult because of the subject matter.
Right.
But in terms of our own egos, it was not as hard, because we were playing real people, and the onus wasn't on us looking good in any way. The onus was on telling that story. And so you sort of dropped it and were just able to watch yourself much more easily.
Yeah, you're so consumed by the storyline, by the women, the victims. You're not even focused on appearances and all that other
No,
stuff.
nor should you be.
Yeah,
but
right.
you know, you can. Egos are sneaky to get in there. But that particular movie, it was also just nice as an actress to not have that baggage.
Yeah.
You know, all actors have it too, but really women get the brunt of it in this business,
yeah.
and outside of the business, to just like constantly need to look pleasing.
Right.
Which,
Or to smile a certain way.
well,
It's
I mean,
BS,
the number of times
yeah.
I've been told by strangers to smile. I'm like, you don't want that. Trust
Like,
me.
but who's saying that? Like, just focus
Look,
on your own
I don't
life.
I don't mind people being like, hey, let's all be cheerful with each other. But that's never what the comment
No,
is.
definitely not.
It's like, smile for me.
Right.
I'm
You're like,
okay.
no, I'm good.
Well, you know, I don't want to. It depends on who's asking too.
Right.
But yeah, it was an interesting thing, and certainly a movie I did called Hedwig and the Angry Inch, where I played a man. That was really not a problem for me to watch, because I'm an incredibly good-looking man. I don't want to brag, but I'm a good-looking guy. It does say something, though, that I'm very easily able to say that I'm a very good-looking man, and I have no absolute 100% difficulty saying I'm a good-looking woman. So that interest, immediately shows you something about how I categorize what men look like and what women look
And how
like.
society looks at both those things,
exactly,
too.
yeah.
And we were talking off camera about Lost Girls, just how society looks at certain narratives, certain people, and this movie really shines a light on that.
Yep.
So what was the most powerful thing about Lost Girls, in your opinion?
There's a lot of powerful things about it. I mean, one, really shining the spotlight on this idea that when a victim doesn't fit a certain criteria, that we can discount them, right? If they are female and of a certain socioeconomic class, they don't matter as much. We won't pay as much attention to them. And the way we'll talk about that person deprives them of humanity, because they're a person, no matter what, right? Like, doesn't matter what they do for a living. In this case, the victims were sex workers. Such a small part of the whole of who that person was. And they were just referred to as prostitutes. And I think part of the reason was to sort of compartmentalize them and say, like, well, so they're at-risk people and we're safe. And part of it was because we just discredit people because of their gender, because of their socioeconomic class, because of their race. You know, it's just something we do as a society. And so this film starts out in the manner of a sort of true crime drama, but really is sneaky and gets in there and ends up saying, like, no, these are the voices you should be listening to, not the voices that hammer home the salaciousness of this. You should be listening to these women who know what they're talking about and who were looking for their loved ones and were being ignored. So.
Right, and you should take a little bit of a closer look at the police department and the people who live in this super insular community.
And at yourself,
yeah,
and why
definitely.
are you? And to me, I also came away with why are we obsessed with true crime? You know, there's so many reasons, but it forced me to sort of look at that because it turned that genre on its head. And I'm just like anybody else. Of course, it's interesting to me, true crime, but you know, I found that to be really interesting. And the thing that I personally took away from it was, you know, I think you can feel very powerless nowadays. I mean, anybody can. I'm one of those people who just feels like I have no voice sometimes. And being reminded that this person who was so powerless, Mary Gilbert, the character that Amy Ryan plays in the movie, so powerless, so overlooked, but would not stop, would not be silenced. And the more women who sort of joined her and became the sort of group of voices, they just had to be heard. And they were heard. And to be reminded that one person can actually do something, it's just a good reminder to take with you.
Definitely.
To remind you in your own life.
And a strength in numbers, and like the other women, like the woman that you played, like she's picking up Mary when she's struggling, and like that community was really important, especially during that time where they're trying to find out information about Shannon. Yeah,
those women, one of whom I portray, Lorraine, in the movie, are real women, and their bond is so strong and so important, and it helped them through this, but helped their voices be heard. It continues to help them, you know, and I mean, community is so important, you know, and I think these women found a power and the fact that they cared about each other when they were getting nothing from anyone around them was so important too. And it was kind of, I felt like when we would have that group of women in the movie together, and then the director who was a woman and the producer was a woman, that there was this sort of power that you could sense from that. And I remember being like, wow, this is a powerful thing. Even though we're just portraying that power, it is real. So, you know, that was interesting and something I really took away.
Yeah, and people say like the set was different, this experience was different, but this is a totally different category because of all those things you just said right there.
Yeah, it's kind of profound. It does make you sort of go like, right, you can speak to it with words, but when you're experiencing something like that, it really drives it home.
Yeah, definitely. You were telling me that people that were affected directly by this, they got to see the movie with you guys.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for everybody?
Very moving. There's so much, you always feel a responsibility as an actor to be truthful, you know, no matter what you're doing, even if it's something fun and entertaining. That's your job, right, is to make it human so that we relate to it, and it's not just entertaining, there's sort of a relation from the audience to it. But when you're actually portraying a real person, you feel so much more responsibility to that truth, to honor that truth. And watching the movie with some of these women, it was profound. It was so deeply sad and moving. Every emotion that you would feel watching this movie was just heightened because, you know, I'm a mother, and you just can't stop relating it to your life. And it's so hard for me to understand how someone could face to face rob someone of their humanity and treat someone like that. But I think people do it all the time. We do it all the time as human beings, you know, especially when we're not face to face. You know, it's just, I think sometimes it makes it easier for us to just get through the day if we can, you know, not look at things that are upsetting to us. And, you know, it was important that they be there and share it with us, because the whole purpose of it is to elevate their voices.
Yeah,
you know?
No question about it. So when you think about your career, you've done a bunch of different things. Like when I think of Younger, that's one type of movie you're playing. This is obviously much different. How do you kind of navigate in terms of the parts you look at?
Well, I like to play lots of different characters. That's why I'm an actor. I'm not that interesting of a person, so I play myself all the time. It gets a little boring. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess I fall into the category of character actor, right?
Which is a good deal.
Which is, I think, is great. And I was telling someone the story of when I was a kid and I was doing, you know, children's theater, and I really wanted to be Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, of course. And they were like, "No, you'll be the witch." And I was like, "What?"
You're like, really?
But listen, Dorothy's out of a job at 20 and the witch works till she dies. So
more longevity for the witch.
I'm just saying, it's a more complicated, interesting role. Or am I just telling myself that? No, I mean, but certainly as you get older, you know, the parts get more interesting, and much like I was talking about with what what I felt like I had to look like. I'm in this industry that kind of demands beauty and perfection, but that's not what I offer as an actor, and it never kind of has been. So I'm in a position now where it's a little easier for me to become older because. You know, it was never, there aren't very many shots that are like sort of pushing in on my face as like one tear and the music swells and isn't she gorgeous? And Mom, I'm not saying I'm not pretty. But it's more about who that character is. And that's really what a character actor is. I mean, I think every actor should aspire to be a character actor. That's kind of what we're doing.
Just focus on the work and the character as opposed to picking and prodding all these different physical attributes. It's like, oh, this person should get it because they're this tall or this short. It's like, that's all BS.
What's the story? Who is this person internally? What
Can this person pull it off?
Yeah. And I always am more interested in people who I relate to. And when someone is perfect, I don't relate to them because I'm not perfect.
Oh, wow.
No, I know.
That's a huge
it's shocking. It's shocking. But it's true. But yeah, and I've also been really, really lucky so far to have had a career where I've gotten to play so many different kinds of people, you know, including, you know, like Diana Trout, who's this fabulous character I play on Younger.
Yeah, why don't we talk about her? What's most intriguing about playing that type of person?
She is, she has insecurities and imperfections, but she is 100% confident in her abilities and her own power. And she just, the way she walks through the world, like she knows she deserves to have whatever power she has. I don't walk through the world that way. I kind of like schlump through the world and like tend to apologize for things a lot that aren't even my fault.
Which you shouldn't have to do.
Right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But yeah, so to you know, one of the fascinating things about being an actor is when you inhabit someone else's skin, inevitably you internalize things and they become a part of you, regardless, you don't even notice half the time. And so when I play Diana Trout, there's a certain power that I feel, and it's great. Everyone should try it. They should be nice, don't be mean, but just walk around the world a little bit like feeling confident in your own ability. And, you know, it kind of changes you a little bit. I credit the fact that I ended up directing a couple episodes on the fact that I was playing a boss who felt very comfortable being a boss. And living in that kind of world, I was like, okay, well, I think I can tell people what to do.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask you about with directing. What is that feeling like in terms of the control, the power, just the confidence in doing that?
It's great. I really like telling stories. That's why I'm an actor, and a director really controls that more than an actor does. You know, you control your own performance as an actor, but a director controls the whole story and they put the puzzle together. And that was so fascinating to me. It kind of always has been. But the global conversation we were having at the time with Time's Up was why are women not in these roles? And you know, I was asking that question, and then I had to stop and say, well, why am I not asking to be in this role? If I'm saying women should be in this role, then isn't the onus on me a little bit to put myself out there? So I did, and luckily Darren Starr, the producer of Younger, was like, sure, yeah, direct a couple episodes, and I was pretty good at it. Yeah, obviously knew there were things I brought to the table as an actor that were great, and things I needed to learn, and you know, you can learn as you go. I think there's, you know, this sort of idea, and that is based on some research, that women are fearful of doing something until they're 100% prepared, and men are more willing to learn as you go.
Trial by fire,
And life is learn as you go.
Absolutely.
So, you know, you jump in. But I also think on the flip side of that is partly because women are expected to be perfect. So, you know, you're just navigating that. But directing was definitely incredible, and now it's part of what I want to do. You know, it's how I want to tell stories. I want to keep acting. I love being an actor. But I don't want to stop directing. I want to keep doing that.
Well, what you're saying makes me think about what Elizabeth Banks has done, and I know that you worked with her, and it was like, you know, she had been acting for a while, and then she was like, I'm just gonna do my thing, I'm gonna direct, I got my production company, like, I'm just gonna own the industry now.
Well, you really realize that it's the gatekeepers. You can make all the art you want, but how does that art, especially something like movies and film, I keep pointing to my giant face.
But how are people gonna see it? Who's gonna pump it out?
Who's gonna see it? How are you gonna share that art? So you can make the art, but until the art is out there and the art is having the conversation with the person who's viewing the art, what's the point of it? And so the gatekeepers are the thing, and that's what's really changing. And the you know, now in my long career, but I've been doing this for a while, and that's really what I'm noticing is changing. I really notice where it changes and where it doesn't. You know,
so where does it not change?
Well, I mean, in the movie industry, it's changing, but there's far fewer female directors, and their projects are not getting made.
Right.
Whereas in television, because of the number of platforms that are happening right now, I mean, there's platforms popping up. There's like 16 that just happen in 5 minutes, right? So, and there's the need for content. Well, if you are a new platform and you don't have a ton of money, what you can offer is access to people who don't normally get access. So that is sort of what's happening in the business. That's very exciting. It used to just be the monoliths, the people on TV, those networks that you got to
the
have.
same 5 directors that were doing
Well, and even those networks now have other platforms that they're opening up, like, you know, I would liken it to like a giant Broadway house versus off-Broadway. You don't get as much money, but the riskier things can get seen.
And we need that. We need that platform.
Absolutely.
We need that runway.
Yeah, you do. And so it's exciting. And you're seeing amazing television, amazing stories being told, you know, that are so inspiring and that are breaking molds, you know, like the shows that I like Atlanta.
Oh my God. Atlanta,
I just feel like there was a moment in Atlanta that just like broke wide open, and I was like, oh, we can do anything. I mean, I don't know if we can do it that well, but I mean,
but we can go there.
And you know, Fleabag. There's just lots of.
Fleabag is amazing.
It's incredible, and you know, just her relationship with the camera.
That alone is
fantastic.
Fascinating.
I think she's a superhuman being.
Yeah.
I don't know. She's incredible. But you know, who knows if those 2 shows would have gotten out there 20 years ago.
Yeah, because imagine pitching Fleabag 20 years ago. They're like, wait, what is it?
Or
like,
Atlanta.
Or Atlanta too.
Atlanta,
for sure. Atlanta.
I mean, I just or High Maintenance, which is like an anthological. It's incredible, and that started. They produced it themselves on Vimeo, 5-minute episodes, and then now it's on HBO. You know, we really have access to creative work that we don't. I mean, there's obviously still a lot of work.
Sure.
You know,
Agreed.
I think if you look at the
Peel back
Oscar
the
picks
this
season.
No question, especially the directors. Yeah. I mean,
you know,
you watch Little Women and you're like, how does Greta Gerwig not get nominated?
Well, yeah, she's another one.
And there's another one that's...
I'm a little bit like, what vitamins do those people take? They just have a lot of...
what do they got going? They got a lot of good ideas.
No, I want to just track them for a month and be like, what exactly do they do?
Yeah, what's your creative
process? Or
process?
is it just like on a DNA genetic level and I'll never hope to achieve it? So there's that. But the good news is they're like inspiring you. The bad news is they're also making it seem like they're just there's some people that are such geniuses out there.
Yeah, you're just like, damn, I can't level up to that. But I'm going to do my own thing.
Like Donald Glover. I'm also like, then you're also Childish Gambino. Like,
you're like,
also,
wait, what? Like,
as
two
really
as
well. Oh, and it reminds me, I mean, when someone has that many gifts in one person, you're like, are there severed heads in the closet? Like, is there some dark side?
Yeah, it's like a whole different level. You're just like, that's incredible.
Yeah, but it does inspire you to reach.
Yeah.
To be like, well, I'll try.
Right.
Maybe I'll fail.
Do it, why not?
Yeah,
just give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. So give it a shot.
Who are some people that you've worked with that have inspired you, that you've learned from, that you've really taken a lot from?
Well, Amy Ryan. So Amy Ryan and I have been friends for a really long time and never worked together. And
this was the first time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's an incredible human, and I've always known that, and I've always been a huge fan of her work. So it's one thing to be a fan and to watch someone's work, it's another thing to be in a scene with them.
Right.
You know, and her absolute commitment to the honesty of that moment. Like when you act, it's like playing tennis with someone who's great. you get better, you know? And you just can't not be in that moment with her. And you know, you have that experience and then you file it away and you're like, this is what that's supposed to feel like. This is what I'm trying to attain, you know? So, I mean, someone like that, and working with Sutton Foster on Younger, who's just another one of those people. She dances, she sings, 2-time Tony Award winning.
You're like, how do you do it?
How do you do it? And on top of it is just a golden human. And that's when you're like, okay, you know, we have a lot of ideas of a tortured artist and what being an artist means you somehow have to disregard
or separate
interpersonal relationships or be.
It's like, no, you could do that too.
You can also be a kind, amazing human. And when you, that's really inspiring when you meet people like that.
They're just normal.
Right, and are grounded and kind.
Yeah.
And open and you know, a good human. You're like, wow, all right, so you can do it. Because you do a few times come home and eat that pint of ice cream, like, I'll never be that good. Is it just me?
No, that happens for everybody.
Or sheet cake, as we call it, sheet caking, which is when you, it's, you know, what you do when you're really upset. I saw miniature sheet cakes at Trader Joe's, and I was like, that's for just when you're feeling not great. You don't the whole sheet cake.
And the bigger one is
just
like,
a small one.
just really crappy.
You know, I don't feel, just a little. And then the whole one, the like Costco sheet cake.
The industrial size sheet cake.
That's when you're really feeling low. You get through that.
You're like, okay.
You get diabetes, but you feel better.
Right, but you're like, I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to be all right.
But I've been lucky enough, I mean, John Cameron Mitchell, I worked with in a play and a movie called Hedwig and the Angry Inch. That was my first experience doing a show in New York City. And that changed everything about how I understood what art could be, how I could relate to my own art in a profound way. And I think as a piece of art, it also changed things for a lot of people. I played a man in that, so that kind of exploded what I thought I could play in terms of roles, but it also got me thinking about gender and our relationship to gender. I mean, it just, you know, and I revisit it because it was such a seminal piece for me and I think for a lot of people, and it informs almost everything I do now, you know, and but that becomes cumulative, I think, in your career. I think everything informs, good and bad.
Totally.
You know, when you're absolutely terrible, you also learn things. So I've learned a lot.
Failure's okay, yeah. So it's like, hey, why didn't this work? What did I do wrong?
Right,
How can I learn from this? Or why did this project not get seen by enough people? That's another thing too.
Or why was this project, why did it have every element of perfection and it didn't work?
Right.
You know.
And sometimes you can't control that.
I know, you can never control it.
Yeah.
You have no control.
No, absolutely not.
You just got to make it as good as you can.
Hope,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. It's a lot of like hope and finger crossing and luck as well as hard work.
A lot of different things.
Yeah.
Well, you got a lot of great stuff going on. Why don't you tell everybody where they can check everything out?
Wow, okay, let's see. Netflix.
Lost Girls?
Lost Girls, Friday, March 13th. We're starting our 7th season of Younger. At the end of the month, we start shooting. I'm not sure when that comes out. I'm also on Mrs. America.
That's right.
FX on Hulu, which is an incredible project where Tracy Ullman, Kate Blanchett, I mean, it's an absurd cast, the number of people in that cast, the number of women. That'll be out in April. Yeah, I also just shot a little bit of a George Clooney movie.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever, George.
He directed, right?
He directed it. Yeah, that was amazing to watch him. He's also one of those people that you meet and you're like you're
dude,
great.
What are you eating for breakfast, George?
Yeah, what's in your Wheaties? Yeah, so I have been able to do a lot of things so far this year. It's been great.
Awesome. Looking forward to it all. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that's Miriam. I'm DJ. See you next time around the Sit Down.